voice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jenleeion Circle. I'm your host, Mario Bonds. And as always, we love celebrating stories of tragedy to triumph or ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives. Now, he wanted to be a pilot, and at first he was told no. But he ended up being able to live his dream, becoming a pilot, so much so that he's become an entrepreneur and has founded a private aviation company called Jenleeion, with an amazing story that really shows what grit and hard work can look like. I am so excited to welcome Gonzales to the Jenleeion Circle. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm great, Mario. Thank you so much for having me. Enjoyed and excited about the opportunity to share with you and your guests.
No, yeah, and I think, and thank you for that. One of the reasons why we were so interested in talking to you is this, my goodness, obviously, we want to talk about the venture related to the way you are hoping to revolutionize private aviation. But if we can start back at the beginning, because I find it a bit fascinating, right? As a child, you seemed to be a go-getter in high school, and the fact that you were in a gifted and talented program and became the VP of the Honor Society, et cetera. Where did that come from? Was it instilled into you, your parents, the determination you showed as a child? Take me back to the beginning, Glenn.
You know, Mario, it's interesting. There's so many different things that I could point to say, well, that was a moment in time. But I guess what was really interesting, all of our first mentors are more times than not our parents or someone who is in a place of seniority, if you will. But it was the village that raised my sister and I, and our church and our school. It was all of the people at my church. So it was just my parents. It wasn't just my parents. It was my aunts and uncles. It was the men and women at my church. Fascinatingly enough, our church had 3 military academy appointees. Today we have 2 physicians that were all in the same class as me, a movie producer and writer, a college professor. So it was just kind of this village and this ecosystem of support that we all had. And they were all pushing us to just be the best that we could be, whether that was to win organizational competitions for the church or just to be the best individuals that we could be. So, it started at home and then extended out into that immediate environment with my church, with my teachers at school, and then the competition amongst my friends.
And then, of course, a lot of language competitions you participate in. What languages do you speak?
I do speak, of course, English. I'm pretty good at Spanish, and my daughters and wife are fluent in French. I understand French better than I speak it, so I'm only trilingual to an extent.
Well, kudos to Spanish. I'll say, well, es un placer de conocerte hoy y gracias por tu conversación. Fantastic. So with that being said, obviously after high school, you decided to parlay into the Air Force. And getting into the Air Force, there was a dream of flying that was temporarily derailed. Take me to that moment and what that felt like, and specifically what was the factor that seemingly was in front of you to derail that dream of becoming a pilot?
Yeah, so my sister was able to go off to college, and my parents supported her to get into school. As a lower middle class at best family, my parents didn't have money for school for me. So choosing where to go to school started with, how do I accomplish the things that I want in life? I wanted to play Division I college basketball. But that was secondary to me getting the absolute best education that I could. If there was a possibility to fly an airplane or to learn to fly or to be close to aviation, that was really the third piece. And so the Air Force provided the best of all 3 of those. However, my very first appointment as an appointee awaiting for my opportunity to attend the academy was a Department of Defense Medical Evaluation Review Board. And I go in, and the very first station is an eye station. I sit down, and the doctor asks me to read what I can see. And of course, I can't see much of the letters that he has. And so he adjusts it. and I read what I can. And unfortunately, that at the time, the Air Force had a policy such that if you are not naturally 2020,
Mm.
you'll never be able to fly an airplane. And so that kind of derailed it from the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
Or I would have that opportunity to even set foot into a cockpit. Fortunately, that
Wow.
policy changed over time, and that opportunity presented itself later. But it was a little bit depressing, but I felt like I had two of the three goals that I was after accomplished, and so it was still the right decision to pursue forward.
And that's inspiring to me, right? Because it really serves to the spirit of humility, or at least self-humility, in the sense that you were able to reconcile the fact that, gee, I'm not going to get that first of all, the fact that you have the nerve to have a three-tiered goal plan, I think is fantastic, right? And then being able to reconcile yourself, well, you win some and lose some. You got 66% of this done. I think that's fantastic. But then the rules did change. And aviation, albeit it was the third on the list, it became the primary. When and why?
Well, it was always a primary.
Okay.
As far as I can remember, Mario, I wanted to fly, but I didn't. My
Mm,
parents didn't know anyone. I didn't even know anyone who worked at the airport.
mm,
And so to expose me to that environment, as a child, it was Superman, it was Star Wars,
mm,
it was anything and everything I could do to think about being airborne. I built paper airplanes and made them, and I attached straws to them. So aviation was always, in the back of my mind. I just had no idea how to do it. So it really
mm,
does speak to the idea that if you could see it or be close to someone who's doing it, and that can expose you to it, then you can be it yourself. And
mm.
the Air Force Academy created that opportunity for me to see it, for me to be close to it and exposed to it and experience it. And it took the change of a policy, it took the needs of the Air Force to change. That created the opportunity. But had I not pursued that goal, had I not pursued that passion with the hope that, in my mind, my plan was to study engineering, to get close
Mm.
enough to it that if I'm a good enough cockpit designer, someone will give me a chance. So there was always
Absolutely.
this spark, this bright light off in the distance that made me feel like I could accomplish it.
Hmm.
It fit perfectly with the wild idea that I could get all three of those dreams accomplished in one sitting. And it turned out the right way.
And the interesting part about that is that for the Air Force perspective, is my goodness, if that policy hadn't changed, they would have definitely had slim pickings for pilots, because I'm not sure many people who consistently naturally have 20/20 vision.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. How long did you stay at the Air Force? Because you went on to get some impressive academic accolades, including an MBA and including the two masters that you went on to get, right? Did that happen in tandem with the Air Force or post Air Force?
It's a combination of the two, Mario. I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1999. I immediately, like every other cadet, received my commission as a lieutenant, second lieutenant in the Air Force. And then from there, I waited for an opportunity to go to pilot training. I graduated from pilot training about a year and a half or so from graduating at the academy, and then started flying in the Air Force, initially as an instructor pilot, and then transitioning to fly fighters. The end of my fighter tour ended up being about 2 weeks shy of 10 years. And that was the time where I elected to separate away from the active duty Air Force. And that's when I
Mm.
really put a lot more effort into transitioning from being a pilot, traveling around the world, flying Gulf Streams, and I flew around the world and deployed in defense of the nation. But at this point in time, it was really about how do I do what excites me again?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
sales was it. And that's why I went and got the MBA from the University of South Carolina. I finished another degree from Embry-Riddle. I now sit on the board for the worldwide campus for Embry-Riddle. And so it's just been a great and phenomenal journey, and I've loved every step of it.
How many years did you spend in the sales piece of it? I think it was Hyundai Aviation you worked at for a while.
Yeah, it was
Uh, how, yeah. How many years did you do that?
So I was in a sales support role at Gulfstream. That was my introduction to private aviation and the
Hmm.
sales and the business of private aviation. So
That's
many
Gulfstream.
people,
That's Gulfstream Aerospace.
that's correct, Gulfstream Aerospace.
Know them well. Did an event for them several years back. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, beautiful machines, the most opulent and technical aircraft in the world, longest range, fastest flying, amazing machinery.
Top
But
dollar too.
oh yeah, yeah, you're talking 50 million and up for those airplanes.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience, but it taught me that aviation's far more than piloting and maintenance support and fuel. There's such a big business behind aviation, and the sales piece of it was the part that was most attractive to me.
Mm.
And so I found an opportunity to sell airplanes with Honda Aircraft Company. I was selling for the eastern half of the region, eastern US, for mainly the Northeast, and saw an opportunity in the market that said, man, kind of like those three-tiered effort that I was after, those three goals I was after for college. I can achieve what I want personally, I can achieve what I want for my family, and I can achieve what I want professionally if I start my own business. So, and that gap in the market that I recognized is where that came about.
And that's what takes me to my next question. So, Jet It and the European counterpart, Jet Club. You just teased it a bit, but take me further into the think tank status of starting Jet It.
Yeah, so Jedit came about from just being a typical type A salesman personality. I would go into conversations always trying to figure out how can I advance this process forward? How can I get a deal done to essentially do more for my family, do more for myself professionally, and to achieve that win personally. Obviously, you can only sell something that someone wants or needs.
Yeah.
In those conversations, time and again, I would hear that, Glenn, I love the airplane. I want the airplane, but I don't need the airplane for 365 days out of the year. Can you
Mm.
help me find a partner? Can you help me find a way to offset my cost of ownership in some form or fashion? And
Mm.
the business idea came from those conversations. Time and again, understanding what their needs were, understanding what their wants were, and realizing that there was nothing in the marketplace that was providing it. And so that's where Jetit came about. I talked with my co-founder, Vishal Hidamit, who runs Jet Club, and
Mm.
he said the same thing. Glenn, I've been flying all around the Asia Pacific region, setting up the Honda sales network, and I'm hearing all the same things. And so we decided to partner together, pull some fundraising in. I spent the better part of 2 years building the business model. A lot of perseverance and resilience, a lot of determination, and here we are today.
Yeah, and so what does the structure, how deep does the structure go if you were to break it down? Because it's interesting to me. You think about, vacation spots and people say, oh, the whole timeshare idea is that, gee, well, I don't want to owe luxury all year long, but what can I do to get a slice of it when I need it, right? So take me in the day-to-day, I guess the transaction that would happen. Do people essentially, what's the difference between leasing and this particular owner structure?
Yeah, so it is very much like you described. I just need this piece of luxury, time being that luxury that people are buying into with our program. I just need it a little bit throughout the year. I don't need it every day. So it is in some cases like a timeshare,
Mm.
and but it is titled to you, and that's where it becomes different from a lease or some other form of ownership. You own it, it's titled to you. There are some tremendous tax advantages associated with that. The current tax code allows you to write off 100% of the acquisition if you're using it for a business,
Oh,
as
wow.
a business tool. So sometimes you see people put stickers on their vehicles, or they buy a vehicle exclusively for driving to and from work or traveling around states. That you're getting a write-off with that. If you're buying a heavy piece of equipment like a big truck, and you're driving a truck full time as your career profession, there are tax benefits to that. And so it's just the same when you own a piece of one of our aircraft, you can have that same tax advantage.
That's fantastic. So how many years are we, you said 2 years. So does that mean that company has been up and running for 2 years, or that was a 2 years of footwork that you put into it?
It was 2 years of just hard nosed, day to day effort to build a business plan.
Mm,
Aviation is such a dynamic industry and there's so many variables. We always think about the weather or the aircraft maintainability, but there's so many more variables that influence the business of aviation. And
mm,
so it took the better part to plan it like I would plan a mission when I was flying fighters. And the end result of that, Mario, is we found a business model that works. It's been effective. It's been supportive for meeting the needs of our share owners. And it's changing how people travel. It's changing the marketplace. There are already people who are imitating what we're doing and trying to copy our business model. So we're flattered by it.
sounds good. On the commercial side, several of the nation's largest airlines have already started canceling flights for the vacation summer period. When the pandemic started, about 13,000 pilots were sent home for early retirement. And that 13,000 pilot shortage still exists today. So obviously, you've given a lot of aviation opinion, right, across the media sphere. So, in your opinion, based on what's going on today, I mean, unfortunately it's a deplorable state out there, right, because of inflation, also because of that shortage that I just mentioned in terms of pilots, et cetera. How does that speak to you with having such insight into aviation?
Yeah, it's hard. Talking about those variables that we were talking about just a moment ago, Mario. Pilots are a big piece of it. Probably one of the most important elements in the whole spectrum of aviation. And when there's a shortage at the airlines, there's a shortage everywhere, and so it creates all kinds of new challenges. But we find ourselves as a creative solution for helping grow experienced pilots, for helping feed those airlines and cargo operators that are out there. But also, we find that it's up to us to create a positive solution for those individuals to want to be a destination for aviation. It's tough. It's tough,
Yeah,
but we're
yeah.
managing and we're excited about the future for companies like ours.
And I'm asking you to sort of conjecture in terms of an example, but obviously every contract would be different, but what would the theoretical cost of, say, owning a jet through your business model be, say, if someone wanted to own it for a quarter of the year or a quarter of the year, that sort of thing? Are we, because again, the whole point is that, gee, I don't want to spend the $50 million, which is the baseline price, to get a personal jet. To what degree is it advantageous for you in terms of the cost savings that would be passed on to the customer who
Yeah,
would go with
so
your business model?
yeah, I think the better way to think about it is, and COVID's a perfect example of how to think of it. We've all probably known someone who has lost a loved one due to COVID, or at some point in time in life, we've all lost someone that we've loved. When you think about it that way, and what you would pay, what you would do to get that time back with that individual, it becomes readily apparent how valuable a program like Jetted is. That said, we had one individual in the real estate space. In one day, he flew to 5 different cities.
Mm.
It was less than 4 hours of flight time and less than 8,000 total dollars. That would have taken him 3 days to do, and about half the cost of $4,000 had he done that same trip commercially.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
when you think about whether that's to go see family, to go see 4 or 5 different family members in 5 different cities on the same day, or if that's from a business standpoint like this situation, what is the return on investment? The
Mm.
return on investment to spend $1,800 an hour to fly and have a private jet show up to pick you up, take you where you want to go, get you where you want to be, and wait for you if need be, or come back and get you a couple of days later. It's just an unmatched value across any spectrum. And when you apply it to the value of time, people always talk about time as money, but until you really apply it to what you would do with that time if you had it back, it's
Mm.
hard to say.
That's powerful. That's absolutely powerful. So, the plan is to obviously revolutionize private aviation one by one. And earlier, you teased the fact that other companies are looking at your model, and you guys are flattered by it. So, to what degree? I guess, what is the overall plan for Jetted and Jet Club next? How far are you hoping to go?
You know, our going in premise was simply this, that history always repeats itself. And when you look at
Yes.
the history of transportation, people are looking for more autonomy and efficiency.
Yeah.
Um, if you think about it in terms of um, you know, the automobiles, if you, or better yet, if you think about it, 400 years ago, if you had the means, you had a horse and carriage.
Yeah.
You could feed the horse, you could buy the horse, or at least you had the time to break the horse. You could have a carriage, and that's how you got around. If you didn't have a horse and carriage, you probably didn't have means, which meant you were walking from A to B. Those are your only two options.
Yeah.
Fast forward to present day, those who have means are looking for the same autonomy and efficiency in how they travel. You talk
Yeah.
about the airlines canceling flights. You're losing autonomy. If the airlines cancel a flight
You're
and
stuck in the airport.
you're stuck in the airport, or you're just not going that day, you're going to miss your
Yeah.
trip. If you are flying on the airlines, you're going to miss out on half of your day because you've got to stop at a major hub airport, or you've got to drive from your final destination to where you're trying to get to because it's not close to a major airport. The airlines only cover 5% of the airports throughout the country.
Mm.
People don't oftentimes realize that, but there's still 95% or another 95% of airports across the country spread out closer to the destination that people are trying to get to. It's that autonomy and efficiency that
Mhm.
we built our business on. It's the human behavior of autonomy and efficiency and the need for transportation
Yeah.
that we're based upon. And so we'll let the market decide where we are in the coming years. We have to perform, we have to execute.
Yeah.
But if we're able to continue executing, we expect there to be a tremendous amount of opportunity for us.
And continuing in that analogous voice, I'm looking at something like, for me, it's I'm totally blind, and sometimes I would prefer to have a personal driver, and it would be the difference between having a luxury car pick you up and just kind of paying 100 $150, or just kind of doing it the regular public conveyance way. I'm wondering if, and let me know if in my novice mind of aviation, if I'm going too far, but I'm wondering if it's possible in the future to get to that particular point where at least, a family that is of reasonable means, or at least, high middle class could say, you know what, for this particular trip, I don't want to deal with it. We'll pay an extra $1,000 per person, or an extra $1,200 per person, so we can go across the pond by ourselves, without having to deal with the hubbub of the commercial experience. Is my novice mind thinking too far, or is that an idea of where you're hoping the industry does go in privatizing aviation?
Not at all, Mario. You are right on track. That is definitely the way to go. That's what we'd love to see. To speak to that, we have ordered and are on order for a number of electric aircraft. They are not yet certified. It's with Buy Aerospace, and it's the E-Flyer 800. It's an 8-passenger electric aircraft
Wow.
that flies the same speed as a lot of combustion aircraft today.
Are they
Electrifying.
just as loud?
They're actually very quiet, extremely quiet, because you don't have that combustion happening. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and so you really just have the air noise around the aircraft, which in some cases might be a little eerie because it's not what we're used to. But the fact of the matter is, to be able to electrify aviation when half of the cost of flying an airplane is fuel. In some
Mm,
cases, in today's case, it's two-thirds of the cost because fuel prices
mm,
are so high. So
mm,
if that is the majority of the cost and I can remove that from the operation cost, I can then bring down the overall value or the
mm.
cost to the customer, increasing the value of experience. At the end of the day, though, it's about physics. And
Yeah.
right now, combustion is the only way for us to go as fast as we can. So if speed and efficiency are important to us, then what we do is a critical piece to it. But yes, we're definitely driving and moving in the direction of bringing down the cost of aviation as quickly as possible.
An electric aircraft. Oh my God, that opens up a whole. Oh God, we'd have to talk more about that, but at some other time, because I have so many scientific questions about how many batteries are on board, and what are the backup systems, et cetera. Obviously, since it's just electric dependency, that would be. I think it's awesome, and I'm fascinated by that. So I'd love to at some point have a deeper scientific discussion with you around physics and all of that type of stuff. I think it's very interesting. And this month is definitely the month of Father's Day. How you doing as a dad, Glenn?
I'm happy. My oldest is a violinist. She's off to study school at the New England Conservatory. I'm very proud of the effort that she and her sister have put into their instruments. My
Awesome.
younger daughter's a cellist. I've loved being a dad. I'm sad to see them growing up and going off, but I've done my best, and my wife has done an amazing job with them just the same.
I think that. So put it in the metaphorical experience of aviation, where you've well prepared them to take a decent flight. So I think that's quite excellent. Well, definitely, we look forward to being able to stay in contact with you, Glenn. I want to thank you for joining us in the Jenleeion Circle today. Where can everyone follow you?
I'm on all of the various different social media platforms. Typically, most people find me on LinkedIn. It's Aviator Glenn is how you can find me, or just Glenn Gonzales with JetIt. And our JetIt website is just gojetit.com.
Fantastic, everyone. Well, gojetit.com indeed. We've been talking to the head of JetIt, private aviation company, this afternoon, and we'll be in touch. Again, Glenn, thank you so much for your inspiration, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
All right, see you next time, everybody.
Does anyone still believe in paradise? Or is it only me? Do you believe so follow me.